Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Francesca Warren. We are here in Reclaiming Our Connection, and we are talking to one of our top 50 educators, I didn't ask if you were married. Please forgive me.
I am a
Miss,
missive.
Mrs. Amber Chandler. She's going to talk to us a little bit about her background, all these things. So, Amber, tell us, where are you calling from?
I
Give,
am calling from Hamburg. It's right outside of Buffalo.
oh, okay. Now, give us your background in education.
Okay, so I started off as a high school teacher, and then we moved to New York, and the my husband made me go on an interview as practice, and I ended up landing a middle school job where I have stayed ever since then. Um, it was a great way to go to an interview because I was myself. I just did my thing, and I wasn't nervous or anything, so I guess they liked it. So I ended up staying in the middle school, and I've been there for 23 years.
What content area do you teach in middle school?
I am an eighth grade ELA teacher.
Okay, ELA Teachers Unite. I used to be an ELA teacher, and it's really interesting for those of you who don't know, we have a top 50 educator contest every year. So every year, starting August 1, we release an application. The application is open from August to November 1st. November 1st, our team starts to look at them. And Amber was one of the winners of this year. She's a 2025-2026 top 50 educator for the Educators Room. So we have been interviewing all of you guys, but a lot of people have said, oh my God, I didn't know that was a thing. And I'm like, we spent hours combing through just people's applications and what they say. And one of the things that the committee really talked about with your application was your heart for education. So we're going to talk about that. But before we talk about that, I want to read you every day we get, probably not every day, every week we get hundreds of DMs on the Educators Room asking us about just situations that teachers are going through, and what would you do in this situation? So is it okay for me to read to you one of the questions and you just tell us what you think and what is your experience? There is no wrong answer.
All right, that sounds good. All right,
Okay,
shoot.
so we have one today where this is a co-teacher and she is teaching high school. She doesn't tell us what grade. And she says, my co-teacher and I have completely different philosophies on discipline, and it's confusing our students. He's completely laid back, allows the kids to be off task, rarely redirects them, and treats the classroom like a lounge. I'm completely different. I am very structured and believe that students learn better when there are rules are apparent and everyone understands consequences. The issue has come to head where we have about 10% of our kids failing. And so I've worked out that many of those kids on his caseload are supposed to be pulled for small group. My co-teacher is pulling them, but the kids end up watching YouTube videos and playing on their phones instead of learning. We've tried to talk it out, but we keep hitting a wall. How do you find common ground when neither one of us wants to back down?
This is such a tough question. I am blessed beyond compare to have an amazing co-teacher. I've been with her for 10 years now. We can finish each other's sentences. We're that kind of co-teaching. But that is not to say that is, I don't think that's actually typical. I think it's very difficult to put personalities in a room and kind of hope for the best. I think, and this is my union president hat. I know some people would want to say, well, you need to talk to administration, or I would not do that as a union president, but I would look around to see if there's someone who could mentor you through or mediate it through. Maybe somebody that both of the people are friends with, because it sounds like the power struggle is there. And I think that unfortunately in education and ICT and inclusive classrooms, frequently the lead teacher has one sort of takes the lead role. Co-teaching is very rare. And so I think setting up those ideals would have been better from the beginning, like if you had these conversations in the beginning. But I think that when you come to an impasse like this, for one, I would definitely say take a beat. If it's hot, you don't want to have that conversation. Give it a little bit of time. And as an English teacher, I also would say maybe try to write it out. Try to get your top 3 concerns and allow that conversation to happen.
I like that piece because I feel like that is very mature, because ultimately you both are certified teachers. So somebody has to give something, and maybe it's a go back to zero, figure it out. Sometimes it's just not a right fit. and that's okay too, right? So I think that's super important for that. Now we were going to start with, when we start talking about your story and we start talking about all the great things that you've done in education, we really want to start with this idea, because you've always talked about you love organizing and leading others, right? So as a teacher, I'm sorry, as a kid, like what childhood experiences most clearly foreshadow that, you know, you would become this educator and mentor that you've become today?
Well, I think everybody would say I was very bossy when I was little. I was that bossy person. I still am bossy. I still want to run the show and kind of make things happen. I think probably the biggest thing would be, I remember teaching my brother, he's 5 years younger than me, and we were in car rides and I would just make up what I was teaching him. We'd have abstract art time and I just made these things up and I just had so much fun doing that. My sister, who is only 2 years younger, did not want to listen to me quite as much. So she became a teacher too. So we were both bossy, I think. So I think doing that, but also my family talks about it. I love to make people function well together. That's a odd way of saying it, I guess, but I love to bring people together, and I like to observe and see who has which skills and which talents, and to put together those people. So I think that that's where my organizing kind of comes through.
Almost 7 years past COVID, and still it's hard for me to come off mute. That's really interesting because I think many teachers will have that same idea. You know, I loved organizing. I loved teaching my brothers and sisters growing up, and I just love telling people what to do. So it was natural that I would be an educator, right? When you think about this, because there will be people who will watch this and say, you know what, I thought about teaching, but I couldn't handle it. Like I couldn't deal with the kids. Like it's different from teaching your siblings and teaching your stuffed dolls. And how did you shift from, you know, kids talk back and all these things happen? So how did you get yourself ready for that piece?
A couple things. One, it's a very odd situation. I was student teaching and there became a position open. So I was 22 and the position that came open was to teach AP literature to 17 and 18-year-olds. So I had parents sending me lesson plans. Like I was just like this to them. I was like this cute little, I was trying my best and I did really well. I mean, our scores were really good, but the fact is I was so young to them that they didn't trust that. So winning them over was good. But I think also having good mentors, obviously that's something I became very interested in. My mentor, I had two in the building I was in. One was this woman, Mary Potter. She was in charge of our English department. And then they called it our cooperating teacher, this woman, Sherry Fawcett. And they both are phenomenal teachers. And when you were talking, they're very different teachers as well. And so I got the impact of having really good teachers there who could give some tough love. I remember one time I had, when I was student teaching, I had a spelling mistake in the worksheet I was handing out. And she stopped me. She told me, she let me do it. She wasn't going to like interrupt what I was doing. But then afterwards she talked to me and she said, you got to be super careful. And it stuck with me. And so now I am very, very careful about spelling mistakes.
Funny that you said that because I was talking every Sunday. We have this talk show where we talk about all things education, and we were talking about there was a teacher there who had taught for 43 years. He retired, and we both talked about just how our teachers who came with us, who like mentored us our first couple of years, were so integral to the teachers that we became 20, 30 years later. And so it's interesting that you said that, because I think sometimes people think, to find a match, you need someone just like you. But honestly, a lot of times to be a great teacher, you just need someone who's going to help you get through whatever your struggles are. So I think that's amazing. And
my biggest struggle is I was so young. I mean,
yeah.
And what was interesting is the one mentor, Mary Potter, she was a department chair, and I just finished grad school. And one of the things that I immediately noticed teaching these kids was that they didn't know how to, and it's funny now, but they didn't know how to do citations well. Like I'm like, this is going to be plagiarism like this. And I kind of was really passionate about, look, I'm there. I just did this. We've got to teach these kids. And she convinced me to write a proposal, go before the school board, and propose this research skills class. And it passed. I got a research skills class, and it became a part of my it became a part of my teaching career immediately. So having someone encourage you to take your shot was really powerful to me, because the first experience I had really was proposing something that people saw as valuable. And I think I haven't been very scared since then, I guess,
Mhm.
of trying things out.
That's interesting that you talked about that, because the next thing I was going to ask you was about, you've written pretty extensively, right? And what, like, can you talk about any specific examples of where you have, I don't want to say a story of a teacher whose life or practice changed because of something you wrote, or just the experience stayed with you as an educator?
So one of the things that, and I was kind of thinking about this, I think one of the things I do is give people this unwritten permission to do some things. And I think about this with the trailblazing, that I've researched, I found in practice to work, and I kind of say like, oh, well, just say I said it. Like it. I mean, they don't know. The administrators wouldn't know. I'm just Amber Chandler. Like I said this. For example, homework. I haven't given homework in 20 years. It's, to me, socioeconomically imbalanced, family structures, kids who have to work. Plus, I think they are real people who have real lives outside of school. I don't want to do work outside of school. So, 20 years ago, that was a pretty crazy thought. And so when I would do webinars or things, I would kind of tell people, you have to get permission to do these things, but sometimes you can, apologize later. But if you have the justification and why you're doing something, it helps. So I was kind of thinking about who would be in that situation. And I think that really leads me to what I try to do with mentoring is, teaching for, and it's my total is 27 years. So for 27 years being a teacher, you almost see it all. And so giving people permission to try things themselves that they think are innovative and interesting, because that's what keeps you fresh in the career. Like if you decide you want to try something new, flexible seating. I was flexible seating, got a grant like 15 years ago. People were not in love with it at first. I had a few people who were like, "Oh, it's the party room." I was like, "Well, no, it's not the party room. This is what worked at the time." And so some of those things, just giving people permission to try some innovative things. I'd rather them have a little bit of background in it before they jump in and they feel comfortable with that.
That's so interesting that you talk about being innovative. And guys, if you are here, please, I see some people on our YouTube and on our Facebook page. Please leave a comment and tell us where you're from. I think that's important. The idea of not being fearful to try something new, because I think a lot of times, especially with teachers in this day and age, they are held to such a script or such a, I cannot deviate, and it's killing them. It's killing the profession, because they can't be creative. They can't do things that, their kids are interested in. And so as we're thinking about that, I think the lesson that I take is, most of your older teachers, one of the reasons we were so successful is because we were not afraid to try something new. And so that is something that, we want people to do.
Also being able to own a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
telling your students, "Hey, this didn't work. I had this grand plan in my planner mind to do Genius Hour." I don't know if people remember that, when all these companies were trying Genius Hour. So I had this plan to try Genius Hour, and I was going to do it every Monday. And it just never worked. Like about 4 weeks in, I called timeout and I said to my students, I'm like, "We can't do this. I don't know why, but it's not working." And we talked it through about why it wasn't working. Monday was part of the reason it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. But in the end, I just ditched it. I was like, okay, you know what? That didn't work. Let's do something else. And I think that helped the kids see that I'm a person willing to take academic risk. They should be willing to take academic risk as well.
I love it. I think that is such something that isn't talked about today. Now, we've talked about, your example of teachers and doing that. Can you talk anything about, like, as a teacher, I have students that I have put into my timetable that I have learned something from, that I have said, you know what, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm like, you know what? I remember this kid. I remember this. Can you tell us about a student that can change your perspective on, what success looks like in your classroom?
I will never forget the first person who this was for me. As a new teacher, sometimes you get the difficult classes. I had a class of what was affectionately called super seniors, and those super seniors needed to pass my class to graduate. And it was English 12. It was a rough start. And I had no idea what to do. Like, I mean, I really didn't know how to motivate them because I was also the AP teacher. So being those two things seemed very different. So when I went in, I started off, we were just going to journal every day for 10 minutes to start the class. So we had block scheduling. So it was a reasonable amount of time. And I said, I don't care if you write, I hate this. This is stupid. I never want to do this again. Your pen, pencil on the paper for 10 minutes. And I did it with them. And through that, I did read a lot of, this is so stupid. You know, what are you doing? But eventually it became a part of our routine. And through that, there was a young woman named Tyler who had adopted parents. She struggled a bit. She had dyslexia. I mean, she struggled a bit, but she really wanted to get out of her own life. Like, she wanted something different. And over the course of her journals, we were kind of writing back and forth. I convinced her to apply to college. And she didn't think she could get in. She didn't have the money. And Tyler decided that she was going to do the application, showed it to me. I helped her, proofread. Back then, this was like pencil and paper kind of application. And so she sent it in, and she ended up getting, because of sort of some of her circumstances and the essay that she wrote explaining it, she ended up getting a full ride to college. And it was, that was the first time I had done something that was, powerfully, this is a moment I made an impact on this person dramatically. And it doesn't always happen like that. It just doesn't. But I always remember Tyler, and I was young and she was young. I mean, I was 23, maybe. She was 18. And I think that was sort of a bridge of just being able to write it instead of say it to me. I don't think she would have ever said to my face, I want to go to college, but I can't because I don't have any money. Like, she wrote it, but she wouldn't have said that. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Tyler, for sure.
That is amazing. And I think we all have Tylers in our classrooms that we think about, and we just think back, oh my gosh, because 23 and 18, that's only 5 years, so it probably also made her feel good that she could tell you that because you were, so close to her age.
What's funny is now is that my students, you capture people in time. So I'm remembering these people as like 18-year-olds. I have that picture, and,
Yeah.
I'll see, I'll get Facebook requests. I'm 52. I mean, they're like 45, 46 years old. And it's so hard for me to comprehend that these like people with adult lives and they just they move on. But it's funny. We have, some of my students, my very first class has a AP group chat. And it was back from my AP class. And there's probably 5 or 6 of us who are still on it, who talk, because they're close to my age too.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of interesting.
I love that. And, it's really interesting in that this is a lesson for those teachers who are in it now that, I'm like you, like, I'm always like, oh, they were my child in like 11th grade. And now they're like 40. And I'm like, oh, how did you get here? I really want to talk about, because you're a teacher union president. I really want to talk about that, because teacher unions have been doing a lot of great work, and we're, in my opinion, we are at a crossroads in education. We just heard yesterday that the Department of Education is moving special education to Health and Human Services. Robert F. Kennedy will be overseeing that, and then the Department of Justice will oversee the Office of Civil Rights Complaints. And so, as we're thinking about that, talk about your role as a union president, and what is it like in that role when public education is literally under attack in all aspects?
It's really interesting because I had only been president for a little while. I think my first term when COVID hit. So it was like trial by fire, because all of a sudden we were trying to figure out how teachers could be online, how teachers could do these things. But we also were working on, and I cared a lot about it, is the teachers' rights in these situations. One of the big things that I negotiated was, and made sure that did not happen, is we did not want cameras in the classroom. I did not want any student to ever feel that people can screen capture, people can, do terrible things. And I want my classroom to be a space where people can take risk and have the wrong answer, and, that we can have fun. And it wasn't about me not being on camera. Like, I don't mind being on camera. I minded that for my students. They're middle school students. They're going to act like middle school students. And I don't think those things should stick with them. So that was a really big one, because there was a lot of pressure to like just have teachers teach in some kids in the classroom and kids at home tune in. There was all those things. And, you kind of thought it's not going to get any worse. And then it does. Right now, things are very rough. And I think that a lot of the money that was supposed to go to social emotional learning and to a lot of those things went to programs. I talk about this in my book. They went to programs, and the programs being like close the gap in your math facts. Like, it went to a lot of that kind of remediation. And I definitely believe in remediation, but the social emotional aspect that needed to be there was really important to me. And so those were some of the like hills I die on, for my teachers, because I knew what we were facing in the classroom. So those were big things. It is very difficult to be under attack. And when you write as much as I do, it gets personal sometimes. People have a lot of things to say. And I really think it's important that we don't shy away from the very fact that if what you're doing is the best thing for kids, you can stand on that. Like, that is what you stand on. Like, look, these are the kids in front of me. These are the kids I'm teaching. We have to figure out the best way to do that. Like, not your program, not your scripted stuff. You really need to look at and use surveys and get to know your students and figure out what they like and what they're good at and build from there. And so a lot of what I really focus on in my being a union president is trying to bridge gaps that I think really happened during COVID and we haven't recovered from. And that is like the community aspect, the family aspect. You're muted. Again. We're back in COVID time right there. That was it.
So you're in the Northeast. Are you finding that many of the national fights are coming to your doorsteps?
Well, New York State, we were the bell-to-bell owned ban was a very big fight. And I had mixed feelings about it. I still do. I was willing to support. Obviously, the teachers wanted it. The majority of teachers wanted it. And again, it was good for kids who are addicted to cell phones because of corporations and all those things. But things that we're like New York is sort of the hub of where things start a lot of times, and it kind of pushes out from there. And that is exciting to me. And AFT they're coming out of like Washington, and to bridge that whole Northeast, I think is really great. And then I know like to get it across the country is difficult when you have any single initiative, because you have to look at the people who are going to be affected by that initiative. And I always talk about like, if you go to the middle of the Midwest and you've never been to the Midwest, it's like you're in another country. I mean, it's another world. If you are in California, it's really different than being in, South Carolina. So you have to look at a lot of things, and the community is one of the things that I think you have to look at.
Yeah. I love that. I love that piece. And I love that, I think people are seeing just how important unions are, because a lot of the lawsuits that are being overturned with some of the things that we're seeing from the Department of Education are coming from unions. Unions are suing and saying you cannot take grants from English language learners. That is not right. And many federal judges are overturning them. So I think when people say, why pay your union dues, there you can see very clearly that they are fighting really a fight for public education.
And I think it grows as you kind of realize solidarity. When solidarity happens, it's really hard to ever pull it out of anybody's hands, because when you know that, I have in our district, we have 438 teachers. If we can get on the same page about things, we can, protect the things that are important to us. And it's been important to work with our district, especially after COVID, to make things work smoothly and get back to better. But again, like when you have a collective action, it's really important to give everybody their own leadership in things and just having that unity.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's very important about solidarity, because one of the things that we're seeing is something might not impact you, right? You might not have students in special education. You might not have OCR complaints. But if it is going to impact those two pieces, it's definitely going to impact other places. And so it's almost, you got to fight it because it's coming to your doorstep next. You have a book, your newest book, Reclaiming Connection. It talks about strengthening relationships between educators, families, and communities. What inspired you to write the book, and what do you hope readers to take away from it? And do you have a copy of the book? Can you hold it up?
You know what, I do, but I'd have to leave here, so I can show you if you want. Reclaiming Connection came out of my breakfast with my co-teacher and the teacher across the hall, and actually a teacher next door who I had mentored when she first got to the school. And every day we'd have breakfast, and this was after COVID, and every day we're trying so hard, and it was so frustrating. And you just felt like you were banging your head up against the wall. And after a while, the spitballing kind of got to a point where we were really just like, throw your hands up. Like, what can we do? Because of the mental health challenges, because of the gaps in achievement, because, special ed students had fallen further behind, because obviously getting their service was very difficult, language learners. So we had all these problems. And one day I've written 4 other books. And so one day I kind of stood up. I'm like, I think I have a book. And we're kind of laughing because it just came to me. I'm like, we need to figure out a way that this is not all on our shoulders at this breakfast table every day. This is not, we can't do all of this. And it was really both humbling and clarifying to me. I had never written a book that was not specifically educational. My book, my first book is coming up on its 10th anniversary, and it's about differentiation. So it's teacher driven. This book is not really as teacher driven. It is about me, who I've been teaching for a long time, but it's about people's experiences. But I interviewed more than a dozen people, and I went to the people I could get, anybody, and I got some people. I was surprised they emailed me back, and I was really excited. And I did interviews all summer. I talked to people. We had Zoom meets. It was amazing, and I turned that into sort of a narrative of what me and a scientist, a social planner, like a city planner, a psychiatrist, what they think. Administrators, I was very excited. Our NICET union president talked to me about, Linda Person talked to me about cell phones, because we were in the midst of that. So a lot of people talked to me who I was happily surprised they were willing to, and it just all meshed so well, because it was very gratifying to realize I cannot do all of this at school. Like, I cannot do all of that. And to take and own your part of it, and then to reach out to other people, to bring in more people, sort of make the table bigger. I mean, that's really what it takes. And to get everybody to the table is such a big goal. And having community takes time and effort, and it's not going to happen accidentally. So a lot of the things I talk about in the book are about building community. For example, things like third spaces. Kids don't know where to go. They don't. I mean, I live in Buffalo, so it is really cold a lot of the time. So we have a lack of public spaces where kids can hang out together. And that's got to be like a community effort. We need, the YMCA in coordination with the school district, that the board, the school board approved, parents are willing to support. And then you have this structure that can actually give students a third space with some really good influences. But none of that can happen without the rest of the pieces together. And it's tough. I mean, it takes some coordination, but I really believe good things happen when you go that route.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And that is, where can people get the book if they want to read it?
It is on Amazon. It's Reclaim Connection. You could Google my name, Amber Chandler. And my actual website is called reclaimconnection.com. And my books are there. A lot of my books are there, but I also have things about mentoring teachers. I have blogs. I have a lot of sort of resources on my website. So Reclaim Connection has been sort of my mantra. I use the hashtag on Instagram, Reclaim Connection. I've been sort of blowing it up lately with all this like Hope Core, like there's all these, the Knicks win, all these great things. So I've been really talking about, look, this is reclaiming connection. Like getting into community is where it's at. So Instagram, Reclaim Connection, my name. It's pretty easy to find me. Put it that way. I'm out there, writing a ton.
Absolutely. Now you have education has experienced, a significant shift, right? We have teacher shortages, we have student mental health, we have teacher mental health. What gives you hope about the future of the profession, despite all of our challenges that we see?
The kids. The short answer is just the kids. They need us. I always think about this when parenting. My kids are 18 and 21 now. Parenting, I remember someone telling me that you are the temperature in the room. Like you're the barometer. So if something goes wrong and you freak out, everybody's going to freak out with you. And it kind of goes that way. And if you can remain calm and you can provide structure and routine and, total support. I've done a couple of webinars about this, that it is a almost radical caring that this kid doesn't care. I'm going to care. And I say that to kids. I'll say, look, I'm not going to let you fail. And I will get them as far. I mean, I get them there with my co-teacher because it's hard when a kid isn't doing something that you want them to do. But there's almost always a way to motivate students. And it's really starting with knowing who they are and caring about them as people.
Absolutely. I think that's amazing. Now, I like to ask this question. This is our last question. But I like to ask this question because I feel like this is, people always answer it so differently. And hey, Torsha says, hey, Dr. Childs. She's here. Thank you for joining us. I see some people lurking. It's all good. Let's say tomorrow you wake up and you are the Secretary of Education for nationally. You are running the Department of Ed. You are doing all these things. What would be some things that you would focus on like the next day after you get installed?
The very first thing I would try to do is work with community schools to create community schools, like one-stop shops for little communities is the way that people can support each other. And if you have a dentist who's willing to volunteer his time to come in every other week, and volunteer some time, it's beneficial to them. I mean, giving and volunteering is like soul satisfying. And if we could do those things and put those structures in place, and with all the money that gets, wasted on other things, I think if we, I'm a forget programs person, I'm a look at people person. And if you were to look at the needs of your community, figure out what those needs are, figure out the people who are experts in that area. Like we can't do it all yourself. So who's the expert? And I really learned this from my book. Like I didn't know the answer to city planning. So I found a city planner who would talk to me. So really finding the right people to put at the table and inviting in all the voices. But that kind of collaboration it's radical. I mean, it's very different than what happens right now. And so if I was ruling the world, I would make sure that we have better community structures to support and not only support the students, I think parents, and that's another part of the book. It's a lot about adults and where we are in this like post-COVID, screen addicted, mental health, all of it, where we are. And that's where Reclaim Connection came from, is that my hope for the future comes from reclaiming the connections that I believe some of my students are 12 years old. They haven't had, meet me at the backyard at this tree and we're going to hang out all afternoon. And they haven't had that. And they don't even know how to do that. And so it takes everybody to kind of pull together ways that we can get to kids, like we can really reach them. So to me, my very first thing I would do would be looking for leadership that is willing to take chances on kids and communities and not programs and random metrics.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate like everybody has such a different answer. So it's always interesting to see that. Now, you talked a little bit about your website. Can you give it to us? We're going to put it in the comments, guys, so people can go give us your website one more time. We want to put it there so people.
All right. It's all one word. It's reclaimconnection.com.
Okay. And want connections or connection?
It's connection, reclaimconnection.com.
Okay, so we're putting that on there. We want you guys to please come through and please support her. Where can people find you in the next couple of weeks? Are you on summer vacation? You guys aren't on summer vacation.
We're not there yet. We are not there yet. We're getting there. We have, I think we have, as we say, we have 6 wake ups. I think we have 6 wake ups. And so we're kind of finishing up. This summer, I will be, I'm going to be working a lot with my initiatives around Reclaim Connection, reaching out to parent groups, because I think an educator needs to get in that realm and like cross that aisle a little bit. I mean, we're parents. Like, I'm a parent. I had 2 kids that went straight through public schools. So to get those groups, so I'll be doing some work with that. But one of the big things I'm doing is I'm writing the 2nd edition of my first book, which was the Flexible ELA Classroom. And it was different ways. It was differentiation. And so I'm doing the 2nd edition, and I was very overwhelmed by it at first, but when I went back and read it, I think a lot of what I'm going to say as I work on it is we need to go back to some of the things that I said 10 years ago, that choice boards worked really well. Having strategic groupings worked really well. And so many of the things that we lost during COVID, having project-based learning and authentic audiences, that's what I was really caring about 10 years ago. And COVID and a lot of other things took that. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is we need to kind of come back to, especially the teachers who have experience, come back to what worked, and we can make this work again.
Yeah, I love this. This is such a great conversation. Thank you for being such a great interview. And I think that I'm excited. I would be excited to be in your class because I feel like you're curious, you're open, willing, and that is all the great things that makes you a great educator. Guys, there's a reason that we picked Amber to be one of our top 50 educators, and it's so enlightening when we get to meet them and have them on our show, because it shows the world, what so many great things that are happening that people have no clue about. So many times people focus on the negative in education and everybody's upset, everybody's miserable, but it's just not the truth. And so to have you here and talk to us and give us your perspective and all of the things, it has just made me so happy. I'm also going to put a link, guys, because top 50 educator, I'm going to put our link so everybody can see it. Please take a second, and it's full of people from around the world who are just doing great things. Amber is in there. Amber, have a great night. I know you got to get ready for school tomorrow, but when are you guys out? When's your last day?
The 27th, I believe. It's a little ways. No, the 27th is a Saturday, so I think it may be the 25th. I still have a week and a half. I have a little bit to go.
Yeah, but good thing is that you don't go back to after Labor Day, right?
Nope, we do not go back till after Labor Day.
See, and we're in Georgia, and we go back in August early.
It's crazy. We really value not going back until after Labor Day. That's a big value around here. It really does make a difference to teachers. And I just encourage teachers to, we have to have the narrative. Like, we have to tell everybody about the good things that are happening, because somebody else will steal that narrative. And that becomes the story. And teachers don't want to, toot their own horn. We need more people to say, like, look at this, like, this is great. This is what this kid did. And so really being out there and pushing our own, hope and our own stories about how things are going well in our classroom, it can drown out some of the noise.
Absolutely. We so appreciate it. Have a great night, everyone. Join us next Wednesday for our next one. We are moving our time to 12 o'clock noon. So it'll be during the day, and join us on Sundays for our education news you need to know, where we recap all of the education shenanigans that are happening around the world. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.